The Cinematic Shuffle has shuffled once again. If you were around last week, you would have seen me give off my 3 hints for what this film was going to be. Those hints were teen comedy, second slice, and the year 2001. Jacob Martin guessed it right away over on Twitter, while my brother Andy got it half right when he guessed the first American Pie film. I guessed that he forgot that the very first Cinematic Shuffle review, nearly a full year ago, was the first American Pie film, and finally, just now, fate has finally decided that it's time to revisit the sequel, American Pie 2. Let's get cracking. American Pie 2 takes our group of immature young adults that we all know and love directly out of college this time and places them all together in a vacation house where they hope to jump back into the swing of things, especially Jim, who hopes to prove himself as an experienced lover when he hears that Nadia will be showing up in a few weeks. But there's just one problem. How are you supposed to prove yourself as an experienced lover when you don't actually have all that much experience whatsoever? American Pie really was the golden standard when it came down to teen comedies, and truthfully, I missed this series for what it was. The thing about it was that nobody is watching an American Pie film for the story, which, let's face it, the plot in this film is significantly weak, which I will talk about that more in a second. You're watching for 2 things: the comedy itself and the cast of characters, both of which this sequel has a healthy abundance of. There's so much going on in this film that is legitimately hilarious. Both the first and the second movie go off of the brand of humor that I like to call realistic, awkward humor that just comes with the territory of being young, as well as obscure, over-the-top, nearly slapstick humor with a healthy dose of raunch dressing, if you catch my drift. The raunchy atmosphere is strong in American Pie 2, and it works, especially for the year that it was released. Maybe not so much nowadays, so maybe I'm just kind of going off in nostalgia or something, but back then it was perfect. And the characters are essentially the glue as to why it works in the first place. Seriously, the series would not be what it is today, nor be as successful, complete with numerous spin-off films by the way, if it weren't for these characters. They make the entire thing worthwhile and consistently hilarious. That being said, I did mention that the plot of this film is weak, and it is. If you can recall, the plot of the first film was much more contained, as you took all these characters and together they created a pact to lose their virginities by prom night. This simple plot allowed the audience to follow along a lot closer all around because everybody was trying to do the same thing. It was coming of age with an actual plot, which actually made it really strong. The second one though, the second movie is significantly watered thin because everybody, even though they're all physically together, are doing their own thing and they're having their own stories going on. The only story that you really care about, if anything, is Jim's story of trying to gain more experience before the end of the summer when Nadia shows back up. But this is a goal that's mostly ignored throughout the entire film. You see it in the first act, you see it in the third act, but for the most part it's ignored because we have all these different skits going on in the movie that are funny. But a majority of the film is really just all these hijinks that I mentioned, and none of the characters' individual stories or goals stick very much when you think back to what this film was even about. So in a big way, there is no real narrative. It lines up a lot more, I would say, with a sketch show, with a number of skits. Very funny skits, don't get me wrong, but skits nonetheless. That doesn't mean the movie is forgettable. Those skits contain a ton of memorable moments that are just as absurd as the first film, if not more absurd. And there's a lot of one-liners in this film that were all executed by those characters that are just magical together. So there's definitely a strong enough reason to watch it, just to have a good time with it. But as with a lot of sequels out there, I highly doubt people are going to sit down and say, hey, you know what sounds like a good movie to watch right now? American Pie 2. I just don't see that happening. But as a part of a binge of the entire series, this would be a ton of fun and one of the highlights. So take that as you will. I scored this film a B-letter grade, final overall score of 75%, 75 out of 100 possible stars, which basically says, yeah, I mean, the story isn't much of anything, but it is still a strong film in terms of these characters and their chemistry together, as well as all the hijinks throughout the film that are hysterical. Because it doesn't have the strongest narrative though, the score isn't the best that it could be. But like I said, that's not to say that the film isn't funny or worth the watch. It is. What do you guys think about American Pie though? Also, which of these films is your personal favorite? Let me know in the comments section down below, and as for YouTube, you guys know what to do. Hit the like, subscribe button, and bell to be notified when I come out with my next installment for the Cinematic Shuffle. And until then, peace out.